Hello, and welcome back to Toledo Aquaponics. This is currently day 23, and one of my biggest fears finally happened. My system's been cycling fine for 22 plus days, and today, for the first time, it stalled completely. So this is my fourth water quality test today. So my pH is about 7.0. My ammonia is somewhere around 0 to about 0.25, so I'm going to dose it again today, which is kind of on par with where I've been dosing right now. My nitrites are still in the purple range, so they're in 2.2 ppms or greater. And then my nitrates are finally have an uptake again, and they're definitely in the about 40 ppm range or higher. So basically kind of going over what happened. I walked out here today, and my water level was well below where my thermometer hangs, and unfortunately when that happens it eventually goes below the output valve on here, and my entire system basically stalled. So my water level dropped too much. So I did a couple changes. I mean, it's something I've been planning on addressing. Basically it was caused by moving to this 3/4 inch pipe for my hosing, and going to it's the same pump, but just going to the 3/4 inch piping. So basically, I've had a couple inches of fluctuation in my system ever since I did that, and I theorized that this would happen eventually. Well, it happened. So my fixes for it is I did replace this first valve, as well as I reduced the flow rate to all my grow beds. So they are all running a lot slower now. They're about where they should be. Typically, you want about a 15 to 30 minute flood cycle. So it takes about 15 minutes to completely flood. It drains in about 5 minutes, and honestly, it drains really quickly. It drains in about 60 seconds, and then it floods back up every 15 minutes. And you can slow that down based on what you want, but it kind of depends on the volume of water you're dealing with. So right now, these are closer to that 15-minute range, and these are still staggered. They're not staggered in really any order. I just kind of let them do what they wanted to do. I'm not too worried because I know if all four of these drain into my sump, I actually do have enough sump to be able to compensate for that. So that should take care of that for the most part. The other thing I did was I added a valve to my 3/4 inch line so that I can reduce the output from my pump. So right now my pump basically looks like this. It's not putting out nearly full power, which is honestly probably a little bit better for the UV clarifier, because it'll buy it a little bit more time to help kill things. I'm already killing off some of my algae. I don't know if you can see, cut towards the bottom part, there's some of that reddish pink area is algae that's basically just dead, because the water, instead of coming out at the higher rate that it was before, is now concentrated to a small little area, and I'm basically slowly killing it off. These beds, not so much. They'll take a little bit more time, but the rest of them are working out pretty well. As far as my plants, they are definitely coming along. That guy's getting pretty big. The rest of them are doing pretty good. My basil's doing pretty decently over here, as well as the kale is definitely doing well. I'm going to probably have to thin some of these out a little bit. My sugar snap peas are doing pretty good, despite the fact that it being a pretty hot day today. My temperature got up pretty high. Right now, my humidity with the garage door open is about 57%, and my temperature right now is about 86 degrees, but my high today has been about 91, and that was in here. And there's about a decent differential between in here and that, and this is the temperature there under the lights. I do have another meter in this area that actually reports to a monitoring station in my house, so I do have a thermometer just kind of do the ambient air around the rest of the room. But so I had a little bit of drama today. Like I said, I mean, the system completely stalled. So my biggest changes was I replaced that valve and adjusted the timings of all the beds, as well as I reduced the return flow from my pump. So my water level right now has been staying constant. It's been a couple hours, and basically the water level stays there. To help augment that a little bit, I did hook up my RO filter and my little flow valve. It's actually been hooked up for a little while now, but it hasn't been running. It is running now, just to kind of keep that, and it's being fed off this 5-gallon bucket. So that's basically kind of how this works. Just to kind of give you a quick look up. I have a 5-gallon bucket that runs up into the sediment filter, then into the carbon filter, and then it goes into that pump actually, which brings the pressure up to where it needs to be for the RO membrane. And then from the RO membrane, it goes via the black line to the waste bucket, which right now is basically empty because I just did a change. And then the blue line goes to this little float valve. And basically when I push this down, I don't know how well you'll be able to hear this, but if you look, let's see if I can show that off a little bit better. If you watch the little white line, the white hose coming from the pump, when I push that on, it vibrates a little. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up in camera. There you go. And then when I stop, it eventually shuts down. So that's just kind of my update. Like I said, system's been running for 20 some days, perfectly fine, and installed today. I did immediately pull water quality levels from the fish tank. They were not at toxic levels. However, I did not have fish actively in the system, so the ammonia may have a slight uptick, and my water temperature was about 81 degrees. So with a pH of about 7.0 right now, with the ammonia levels, because they're low, I would have probably been fine if I had fish in the system, but that is something that kind of scares me and I need to watch for. But that's kind of just an update. It's kind of a mess right now, but I do have the flow rate, despite the fact they are flowing all slightly differently looking. Like this one's just kind of like dripping or whatever. They're all cracked to the same basically point. So I turned the valves all the way off, and then they're opened all about a quarter turn right now. Done a little bit, and I can show you actually how I get that pinned down relatively accurately. But they are flowing basically about the same, and then I use a cup. And I put a cup under there, and I time how long it takes to fill the cup. And I use that as my baseline for this first one. And then I go down the line and make sure they're all basically around the same. And they pretty much are. They're all, even though they're all flowing slightly different, like style, they are actually still outputting all about the same. But my water level should be a lot more constant, so that shouldn't be an issue. Like the state of my system, it is progressing. My nitrites are slowly coming down. My nitrates are coming up, so that's a good sign. That means my nitrites are being converted into nitrates at a much faster rate now. So I should be doing pretty good. And I was just trying to show off this little plant right here. He's, it's not going to focus very well. He's doing pretty well. He's got, I was kind of worried about him for a while. He's got some leaves on him, especially on this back side here, that were starting to look like they're going to go. And he looks like he's bouncing back. This guy over here is doing really well. My sugar snap pea plant that I have back here is doing well. This one's doing even better. But these guys are doing really good. I'm not too sure about the kale. They definitely have their next set of leaves in. Especially the one, also the one back here. But they're very light colored. But with how fast growing they are, that might be a little bit okay. But we'll just kind of watch them and see how they go. So this is my day 23 update. Again, basically my system stalled, and that's kind of problematic. So I'm going to kind of work with it from there. But I mean, it's been a couple hours now since the stall and me making a few changes to kind of adjust everything. I had already planned on adding this valve anyways. Basically what I want to do is I want to take 2 T's and put a T on each one of these lines going into the UV clarifier. And then, so that way I can shut off the supply valve. But I want to also add a couple valves in this, so I can shut off the supply to the UV clarifier to be able to pull it off for maintenance, but not actually shut down the water flow. So I'm going to need a T here and a T there, as well as 2 valves, one on the inflow to the UV clarifier, as well as one on the outflow, like on the little connect from the T. So I'll have kind of a parallel line that runs parallel to this, and then another valve on the other side of this UV clarifier, so that way I can basically flip both valves that go to the clarifier and open up this middle one and be able to, everything will kind of flow. And this is my flow control back to here, which kind of works out nicely because basically from here in my system I have that valve and this valve, and that basically controls the entire heartbeat of the system, and then each bed's on an individual flow. So if I need to like restrict flow, that's my master valve that I could do to kind of slow down the flow a little bit going to the beds, and that'll slow them uniformly without messing with any of the timings on here. But that's kind of my update, just to kind of show you. I've been talking for about 10 minutes now. And my water level is still staying basically at that green line. That's pretty much where I want it. So I did bend this around the other way so it doesn't quite hang completely uniformly, but that way it's just a little bit easier to kind of show off, and it definitely shows up better on the camera. You go, that's basically where my water level goes. So this goes, oh, there's my temperature. So my temperature should be in the green. It's a little high right now. It's about 78, 79. And my water level should be in that green line. My water level comes out of that green line, something's wrong. My top-off valve is set, basically is set to that green line. And that's one thing that did get a definitely workout today. I did put in about 15 gallons of water into the system today, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's kind of because the system stalled. So because I'm changing the flow rates, I need a higher quantity of water in here than there was. So I upped this to 15, and then that's gonna be kind of my check for everything. As that bucket drains, I'll know how much water is being topped off into the system. Eventually I'll probably hook up a hose line or something else. Maybe bury a hose or something so my dogs can't get to it. But for right now, the bucket works really well going into the system. I might change out a few more things. I was originally thinking about doing 2 55-gallon buckets and have a clean water. We'll have a source water and a clean water, and then dirty water will just kind of drain out. And that way it kind of runs. But it's kind of the update for today. It's been a bit hectic. I did also, just another update, I am losing a few plants out here. This one completely dried out, this rockwool did. So this guy's toast. But